Hey friends of 221 Epic, thank you so much for joining me for another episode. I have a new friend for you today to meet. I met Souley through my friend Mulai. Shout out Mulai Namanala. And I'm gonna let him introduce himself and we'll get right started with our conversation.
Wait, so which language are we doing? Because I don't know what the audience is talking. Martian? Is it African Earth? Is it...
English, French, or Wolof?
Can we do all three?
Sure.
I feel like all three.
We've been doing all three.
Yeah, all three works for me. So I am Souley, and I am from Senegal, born and raised, and I live here now.
Okay.
If that is summarizing it and encasing all of that.
Somewhat. 221 Africa is all about Africans who were abroad and have now moved back.
Right.
So yes, right now you are in Senegal.
Correct.
Wante.
Yes.
Musoon nga nekk bitim réew.
Loolu am na.
Okay. Nañ tàmbale sa waxtaan boobu. Lan moo la fa yóbbu woon?
Okay. Graduating high school, the choice came up to be...
Here in Dakar?
In Dakar. I graduated in Dakar. And the choice was, are you going to go to Malaysia, to France, or are you going to go to the USA? It ended up being USA.
Okay.
But the choice that I made was, if it's going to be USA, New York, Florida, or California, they ended up being New York.
New York. Shout out New York. So when you landed in New York, you were a student?
Pretty much. So I landed a Saturday, and Tuesday was my first day in class.
Okay. So you're in New York, you're going to school.
Correct. So I registered to be a computer science student, did my 2 years, and halfway through it, I'm like, yeah, this whole typing and coding and whatnot is just not gonna do it. So I left. I took sabbatical. I'm like, let me just take some time off and figure out what exactly I want to do. It turned out that I am more creative than technical. So I landed a job in fashion.
Ah, fashion. Yeah. I would not have expected that.
So I landed a job, an internship in fashion for a Argentinian designer who was based in New York. Okay. So I was helping with the PR, but I was also helping with the styling for his upcoming shows. And I'm like, this is, this whole circuit is, like, it's free, it's all party, it's all this, but I was not so much interested in the party aspect of the industry, but more so on the creative side, and the free clothes, and the free shoes. I did a stint for like 3-4 years on the creative side, and I figured, you know what? I feel like I'm creative, I can express myself creatively. Why don't I explore starting my own clothing line? So I called it Souley, naturally. It was supposed to be a menswear line. I had developed a whole line of samples and whatnot. Come to find out that I was not ready to have a clothing, I was not fit to have a clothing line because I didn't know the business side of it. I saw so many people who started, launched, and then failed. And right before I launched, that's when I realized that, you know what, I have to be honest with myself, I'm just not ready for this. So I took a year off trying to figure out exactly how I can get into the business side of it.
But that also says a lot about who you are. You know, dem ba nga xamne daro desul ludul bus bu tombé cippelo comme ni koy waxé
yeah cippelo rek mo ci
nga ne xaaral ma delu way ginnaw ma recule.
Yeah, no, that wasn't wise or smart.
No, but it is wise and smart parce que am nga always xel pour toog nga réfléchir.
Right, to your point, yeah. But if I had done it, that would have been suicide.
Yeah.
Because so much money goes into starting a line, and that was not wise. So I took a step back.
And did you feel like at that point you had enough contacts that could have, let's say you said let's launch, do you feel like you were in a space where the work that you've been doing in that creative side and the people that you've encountered that you probably could have launched?
I could have launched.
Yeah.
I could have launched. But I saw so many who were heavily backed by money, and then it didn't go anywhere. But I didn't have those pockets that were so deep. I knew I could launch, but my pockets was not so deep for me to launch and survive. So for me, it was like, wait, this is survival mode. I need to figure out which one comes first, surviving or launching, and my ego. So I chose survival. Survival came first.
Oh, the ego.
Yeah, listen, the ego will not take you anywhere. It will lie to you. The ego is lying to you. So I met a wonderful woman who was working on the business side of it. Okay. I was no longer 20. And
spring chicken. No longer.
I was like, listen, I know interning is for fresh out of college and whatnot, and I'm no longer that age. But this side of the industry, I have zero clue, and I want to learn. So she took me in. Gracefully, she took me in. After 2 months there, she gave me a job.
Oh,
she gave me a job, and it was eye-opening how little I knew about running a business on the fashion industry. I was like, wait. You were just guiding me that this was not the right thing for you because you are not ready.
But good for you for listening and paying attention to the signs.
So it was really a blessing to have met her and be coached and be guided by her to strive in the industry. Under her wing, but still consulting right here and there, helping a few designers here and there. It was good. This is where something you had posted recently hit a nerve, and it was just like me just running straight into it.
Tell me more.
So you interviewed recently.
I did.
An entrepreneur called Aisha Chun.
I did. And shout out Aisha. Woohoo!
I choked. I'm like,
you had some feelings?
It really hit a chord. Listen, it hit a chord so deep. I'm like, wait, this woman is telling my story, but why is he saying her? It's not her, it's me, it's my story. So she said, you get to the point where everything is going accordingly. You feel like you're on cloud 9 and everything is just peachy. And I was at that point. There was no ego involved, but you were just enjoying the blessing. And you wake up, everything goes sour. Everything. No more phone calls. No appointment. Nobody needs you anymore. You send email, nobody answers. Rent is due at the end of the month, and you're like, wait, how? Lord, how is this going to happen? Lamba.
Dajoo dara.
Nga yëkkati yére yi gisoo dara. Nga ubbi congélateur fi nga daan denc xaalis fi gisoo dara. Ma ne lii moom du mën a dem. You get to the point where you're like, it looks like this is the universe asking me to pause, stop, and reconsider.
Generally, there's flags, or there's events, or there's moments that kind of lead to the phone call stopping.
Right. So after I kind of branched out on my own a little bit, I was working here or there with a few people doing consulting left and right. And I have to be honest that I noticed that I was doing a lot of fuck-ups. These were not intentional, but I was doing a lot of fuck-ups.
Give me an example.
So there was one designer who had ordered a production of this one item, and she wanted many pieces of it. We get to the production line, and she had already picked her fabrics. The production that she ran, the fabric were inverted. And usually that doesn't happen to me, because on the production sheet that I give to the factory, it stapled the fabric.
So they know exactly what to do.
20 days.
Right.
And this was not their fault, it was my fault. But she's an emerging designer.
Right.
This is an expense that's not going to come out of her pocket again.
Right.
So I had to fork up the money and pay for it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a problem with it because it was my fuck up. I own up to it.
Yeah.
There was another one where she wanted to go, let's say she wanted to go the direction of, I want to do high fashion. I'm like, high fashion is a very tough market to get in. Maybe you should explore ready-to-wear, like more contemporary level. But that's not the direction she wanted to go. So we ended up parting ways as easily as that. I just advised her. She was like, that's not the way I want to go. And I'm like, I'm open to working with you still, but that's, for her, it was like...
You didn't believe in her.
I didn't believe in her, and that's how we stopped. Yeah. So from those points, I'm like, wait, in hindsight, those was red flags and sign where the universe was telling me, slow down. I did consulting work for this restaurant who was like, oh, we heard about what you do. We're interested in you helping us do uniform. I'm like, uniform is very basic and
it's easy.
It's easy.
Yeah.
And it was very easy. They gave me a logo, we printed the uniform. But it was done in Peru, and the communications were there and whatnot. We did the entire production, and then they woke up one day and were like, we want to change the direction. But they already paid. It was all paid for and done. And I'm like, like this is happening too much. People who are engaging, even though they pay the production factory, they paid me my fees and whatnot, and then just it stops. So it just became too reoccurring. I'm like, yeah,
what is the universe trying to tell me? What are
are
you trying to tell me?
What are you trying to tell me? But by then, I'm like so engaged and focused on pushing through. And that's where, as Aisha Chun was saying, if you don't know where you're going, go back where you come from. And that's kind of what triggered that I should go. It took me a year to really take a leap of faith and jump. Okay. It took me a year.
But the seed was planted because it looks like, and it sounds like you were paying attention to the things that weren't going well.
But I was fighting that seed.
You always fight it, right? You always fight it.
Yeah. I think the fight was more so on my end, but family helped ease that trigger, pulling the trigger. Yeah. And my trigger, like the last straw, was you remember election 2016?
Yes, I was crying. I was in tears. I went to bed and woke up and I was in tears for like a week.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm like, if Hillary is, that means I'm staying and giving it another go. But if it's Trump, that means it's
time to go. Time to go.
You are not gonna stay for that bullshit.
Okay.
So that's what I did. So I think it was November 4th or November 5th.
Literally right after elections.
Right after election.
Wow.
I bought a ticket.
In total, how long was your stay in the U.S.?
18, 19 years. From 99 to 2017.
So you were there, right? You were there before 9/11.
Correct.
Because you were in New York, and then you were there after.
Yes.
And we talked to someone else, Amadou, shout out, Amadou. For you, being a student at that age, I mean, your name is not typical. Suleiman can be Muslim, but it could be from other countries. So I don't know what was your experiences during that time, especially 99 up until 2001? Do you remember sort of how it was for you?
It was actually, there was nothing to report for me, really. I think I was blessed with being surrounded by fellow students who were very open-minded, who understood me, understood my background. It used to be, right, that I go to school with my tunic, with my African garb, and none of them had a problem with it. I think this is way before dressing African was cool.
It was cool.
But I used to do it every now and then. Yeah. That's how I actually caught the attention of another Senegalese student who was there. But we used to walk right past each other. Okay. We didn't even recognize that, oh, you might be Senegalese and I might be. Yeah. And that when I dressed up that day, that's how he was like, wait a minute.
I'm walking. Yeah, I'm walking.
Yeah, we see right there, eye to eye. Yes. But it was fun. And no, all my friends, none of them looked at me with that eye of question mark. Good. I never got that sensation. And even after I left school, in the work environment, I must say I never experienced that kind of bias towards.
Yeah, that's really a blessing.
When it comes to skin, that's a different problem.
Yeah. So 18, 19 years abroad, correct. Trump wins.
Time to back up.
Time to move on. So you come back, because the Dakar you knew in 1999 is not. And were you, during that time, did you have opportunities to come back and visit, or
they used to come visit? Oh, they used to come visit. But I never had any call or calling to ever come. Yeah.
Literally, so 1999 into 2016. Yeah. 2016 would have been your first time back home after 18, 19 years. Correct. How was that?
Yeah. So I left New York, right? Right. But I took a road trip, to Morocco. Okay. I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'm ready for the reality that's going to hit me when I get there. I'm just not prepared mentally for that. They try to prepare me as much as possible. I'm like, yeah, no. So let me go to Morocco and be in an environment where it's just me and just myself and I, just us. And we'll figure it out whether we can fit in this African context. That's right. So it was like a mini vacation. I took a mini vacation. I stayed there for quite a while. Morocco, it's not Senegal for sure, but it's us. Like it's African. It's Africa. Yeah. So when it was time for me to pack up, it was a little bit bittersweet because I was like, wait, I stayed in this riad. It was a private riad. I stayed in this riad for X amount of days. It was fun. It was private. I had nobody to answer to, nobody to report to, nobody to just ask me anything. And that's what I know. Like 18 years in New York plus this, that's what I know. Like I had never had anybody to answer to.
Yes.
And I'm just dreading the questions.
Yes.
That's what I was dreading the most.
Yes.
But luckily, we're a small household. So just me and my parents and my siblings. But luckily, they travel back and forth. So we're still a small household. And that sense of independence is still there. But as you say, the reality is like, why are you locked up in your room? You need to come out. You need to talk. So it's there. And then you go outside. The whole wave just hits you. That you have to interact and deal with people. And I'm like, I'm not used to this. Get away from me. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me.
And that's interesting because the what you've just described could be, if we had to put a word to it, someone who sounds like an introvert, right? And so there's you might have tendencies. Living in the U.S., you could be an introvert. An introvert is someone who tends to like to be by themselves and spend time by themselves. An extrovert is opposite, right? I'm an extrovert. But you might have some tendencies of both.
Actually, I am both. I'm an ambivert.
So when you're in the U.S., you have the privilege of, I don't want to deal with anybody. So I'm just stay in my house, stay in my space, and that's it. And no one bothers you.
Exactly.
And when you're in Senegal, if you do that, you're really looked down upon because of the community idea that we have here. So it's really a balance between the two. And as you were saying, you got to be sensitive, and you have to kind of walk a fine line between your parents and your siblings and people who are close to you. Not as much as the people who are outside. But it does smack you in the face.
It does. It does. So to your point, right? Not in a bad way, right? But Senegal, for anything to be done, you need to go through people. I'm not saying
you need to have a connection.
You need to really link up with people. So I tried so hard to do things on my own, but I'm like, wait, this is not going anywhere. And then, as you know, right, we're both entrepreneurs. You just slowly but surely find this entrepreneur here, this one there. You have some things in common, and you just slowly but surely grow your network and your small community of entrepreneurs that you can just vibe with.
Yeah. So you had the data. Yes. That's more like a social impact sort of situation. But you still need some income.
Yes.
So how did, because 18, 19 years is a long time to be abroad. Right. And so first of all, did you come back by yourself? Did you come back with family? How was the transition of coming back?
I came back by myself.
Okay.
I came back by myself.
And then now you're responsible for you. But then the realities of being a male in the African context.
Yes.
Where are you on the family line?
Okay. I need to say this.
That's also something.
Hold on. Wait. No. I want to make a point about this.
Yes.
So for men and women, right?
Yes.
I think when we first get back, right? The first thing they ask you is, are you married?
Yes.
And that used to bother the daylight.
They still ask me that. I've been here for 9 years.
And I'm like, how come nobody has asked me, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you enjoying yourself? I'm like,
are you mentally okay?
Yeah. Like nobody has asked me that.
Because being abroad mentally drains you.
Yes. Especially New York. I don't know what other state, but New York just sucks the living light out of you.
Hey. By someone that nowhere like New York.
Nowhere. No, that mom.
Good or bad.
Ken du ko nangul. Ken New York ma am ben morom. Amul ken morom ci aduna bi. Amul ben morom.
I don't think it's within the. Unfortunately, there's individuals who will ask those questions.
Correct.
But in the community, they don't tend to ask your well-being. It's about. And I think it's because it's the external, the being married. That's the status thing.
Right.
It's linked. And then if you come back, like you don't have anything to show for yourself. You've been gone that long. It's just yo la chapa chulini.
The material doesn't count.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't matter.
So when you come back, the first thing you're like, wait, I think this matrimonial situation, it has to be resolved as soon as possible.
Because I think they pressure you to.
They do too.
Yeah.
But I had put my foot down that
Good.
nothing was going to happen until I can
Until you felt like
find my bearings, until I feel like I am stable.